Natalie, thank you so much for joining us today. I am so excited to spread the nutrition word about healthy eating and healthy habits to our community. And you are the inaugural Edmund's Moms podcast interviewee, and we can't wait to share all your knowledge. Personally, I've worked with Natalie in the past, and she is a magical practitioner and just really helped me find a really good balance with food. And she can really help guide you on a healthy life cycle.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be your first and to talk to your community, because I think it's a community that really can struggle with, women especially in our culture, but there's so much pressure around nutrition and bodies and food that it can get really overwhelming.
Completely. And I'm secretly looking for a reset today, because every time I talk with you, whether it's at a baby shower or a wedding, I get my own personal reset. So I am very looking forward to that today.
Awesome.
So there's so much information out there about good healthy eating habits, what kind of diet to be on, whether that diet is keto or paleo or being vegan, and there's just so many types of diets. Can you give us a little insight into what the research says, how we should be eating in that regard?
Yeah, definitely. So nutrition science is such a young science, and what we think we know keeps changing. And so, what is currently out there right now trending is, keto and intermittent fasting. Talk to me in a year or 2 years, it's going to be something totally different. So, if we were having this conversation in the late 90s, it would have been all about low fat, everything, carbs are totally fine. And then it was all about, Atkins and then like South Beach and so on and so forth. It's important to be a critical reviewer of research, because when you're reading something like, research says or studies show, there's often a lot that's either missing or not captured, whether it's the population size was really small, or the studies were only done over, say, a year or 2 years, so we don't have that longitudinal data. So the work that I do, and I have to say that most clients who come to me are like, Natalie, I know what to eat, I just don't know how. The work that I do is grounded in an evidence-based health intervention called intuitive eating, which essentially is about getting out of our heads around nutrition and back into our bodies. So really beginning to re-understand and reconnect with, what does hunger feel like? What does fullness feel like? How do you decide when to eat? How do you decide when to stop eating? Most people approach a meal and they're thinking about, is it good? Is it bad? Is it healthy? Is it not healthy? How many calories? Can I have it? And half the time we're not even responding to what our body is needing. And so intuitive eating is about getting back to that space that we were at when we were little, because we were all born intuitive eaters. That's the philosophy and approach that I do, and kind of how I approach nutrition overall.
Yeah, that's so good to hear, because if my kids had crackers, they would literally stop eating when they're full, but I don't stop eating until the box is gone.
Yeah, which it makes a lot of sense when we have, and I think that's where when people hear intuitive eating, they're like, well, if I listen to what I would want, then all I would want is pizza and ice cream all the time. That comes from a place of scarcity. So when we tell ourselves we can't have something, we all have the inner toddler in us, and then we're going to want all of it. And then we have all of it, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of, see, I can't control myself around the crackers, the snacks, or whatever. Therefore, I need to get them out of the house or not have any. And we set ourselves up to swing on that pendulum again. But yeah, kids don't, they self-regulate, which is pretty impressive and cool.
Yeah, I want that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I help clients do.
That's fantastic.
Stop being crazy around food.
So clients who come to you are often caught in the cycles of dieting and constantly feeling like they're falling off the wagon, and they're going to get back on the wagon on Monday or the next day. So what keeps people stuck in that kind of diet cycle, and how can we change that?
Yeah, most clients who come to me, again, they're like, I know what to eat, I just can't seem to do it. I have a problem with my willpower. I'll do a diet and it works, but then I just can't keep it together. Or it's something about me. I just have cravings and I can't overcome them. And so that's one of the first things I talk about with clients, is breaking down the diet cycle. And it begins with the quote unquote problem behavior. So for many people, it's, say, emotional eating.
Okay.
And there's a reason why we engage in our quote-unquote problem behaviors. So for emotional eating, maybe it's, a reward at the end of a really long week. or it's a way to connect with our partner at the end of a long day, or maybe it's a way to get through a really boring project at work. So there is this reason why it's helping us, but then we have that onslaught of negative internal dialogue. Like, oh, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just get my act together? It's not like anyone's putting the food in my mouth. I'm never going to be able to fix this. And then that causes for many people a lot of shame and guilt, or just feelings of frustration. And it's from that space that we make the plan. So tomorrow, ... or, Monday or January 1st.
Right.
And making that plan, it distances us from the shame. We feel already just even making plans better. We're like, okay, I'm going to fix this. There's hope. And then there's the honeymoon phase, right? Where it's working, maybe for a day, maybe for a week, maybe for 30 days. But then life happens, right? We're tired, we're stressed, we're hungry. The pre-made meal that we, prepped, we forgot it at home, or it just looks really boring on day 5. And we cycle right back around to the problem behavior. And this cycle repeats. And what keeps us in it is the fact that we internalize it as our fault. So we believe that there's something wrong with the plan or the diet. It's our lack of willpower, our lack of discipline, us just not being able to implement it correctly. And our diet industry is a $60 billion industry. So it banks on repeat customers, and it wants us to internalize it. And so that's why we get caught and keep cycling back around, constantly looking for the new plan.
Okay, so the cycling isn't my fault?
No, it's not. I know. That's crazy. What if
I love that. What if I decided not to look at that as my fault?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Or what if there was no wagon to fall off of?
Right. So is having a plan, is that considered negative then?
Great question. So when I say plan, I think it's important to note that dieting is less about what we do and don't eat and more how we feel about it.
Okay.
So for example, 2 people can go into a restaurant and order a salad. And for one person, it's very diety. It's okay, well, I really want the sandwich, but the salad has less calories and, the sandwich has too many carbs. And there's a lot of internal chatter. Maybe there's a self-righteousness that the person has when they eat the salad, or deprivation. Whereas for somebody who eats intuitively, it's very much like, what am I hungry for? It's like, I'm not that hungry. The salad sounds good. I'm having a heavier dinner later, so I want something lighter now. They eat and they move on. So with intuitive eating and with this process of how we break the cycle, it's about letting go of these rules that we have, letting go of the diet mentality, and again, approaching food, going into a restaurant or meal and saying, how hungry am I? What is going to fill me up based on my experience? What's going to leave me feeling satisfied? And what's going to leave me feeling good physically? And so being able to approach each eating opportunity in that way. And it's a process. It takes time to unravel and unlearn diet culture and then relearn this new way of eating. So I think that piece of exiting the cycle is one of the main areas.
Wow. This is kind of mind-blowing.
It's really hard because, weight loss sells, and the promise of weight loss and the fantasy that comes with this image of this cisgendered white woman with a 6-pack, that is what society says is healthy. And we everywhere around us, we're just told that, that's what we need to be, and dieting and weight loss is the way to get there.
Yeah.
So it's an uphill battle. It's hard to step outside of that, or even to learn like, hey, you don't have to diet. There's another way.
Yeah. So my next question is, can you lose weight with intuitive eating?
It's almost become the intuitive eating diet. Like, you have to eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full, and you can intuitively eat yourself into weight loss. With intuitive eating, it helps people reach their natural set point. So the space that your body feels healthiest at. So some people, when they start practicing intuitive eating, lose weight. Other people don't lose weight. Some people who come into the process really restrictive, they may gain weight. With intuitive eating, it falls under this umbrella of health at every size, which essentially focuses on helping people find consistency in health behaviors. So looking at health from that broader lens, from, health includes genetics, stress, sleep, social connection, mental health, movement, nutrition. So focusing on achieving consistency in health behaviors and trusting that your body is going to get to a space that it feels healthiest at.
Oh, I think that's so beautiful. Health at every size.
Yeah. And it's not saying that everybody is healthy at every size.
Yeah.
It's saying that body diversity is a thing that is true and real. And instead of just trying to make people universally thin as a proxy for, health behaviors, focus instead on the behavioral piece and trust the body to sort itself out.
I have all the feels right now because I think that's so important. And, to think that even exists. And not to correlate health with some image that we get so sucked into.
Right. And I'm sure as like a practitioner yourself and, in the medical community, a lot of times people go to practitioners and there's such this, emphasis on like, oh, you have pain or you have this issue, well, just lose weight. Or that's the cause.
Yeah.
But prescribing weight loss, which is what many clients who come to me have been prescribed essentially by providers, is actually counterproductive because what we do know from the research is that the greatest predictor of weight gain is going on a diet. So to tell somebody go lose weight without even, oftentimes there's a medical provider who's not actually really trained in nutrition prescribing this, knowing that they're setting their client up to fail or not even being helpful in the information that they're giving.
That's so important to know because that is prescribing weight gain then if you prescribe a diet. Yeah. Okay.
Or even just a disordered relationship with food.
Completely.
And shame, a lot of shaming, unfortunately, medical industry. People want to do good. We all are in this profession to help, but there's a lot of unintended negative side effects that come along with that.
So the shame that's created, obviously non-intentional, is that the person's shame putting it on themselves? Or is there some underlying shame in relationship to the medical provider? We have like the fat shaming. People are scared to go to the gym because they're judged, right?
Totally.
So then is this more individual or is this from the medical community?
I think both. I mean, we have, our culture is extremely weight biased. So this thing called thin privilege exists. So the thinner you are, the more cultural currency you have. You'll be able to more easily find clothes in your size. You're not going to go to the doctor and just be told like, oh, well, you have this issue. It's because of you. People aren't going to stare at what you have in your shopping cart when you're grocery shopping, right? So there's this collective shame that's felt by individuals in larger bodies. And there can be direct shaming from medical providers and then also just internalized shame. Even if an individual in a larger body hasn't received direct shaming, it's still going out into a world that doesn't support or see your body as valid or okay. There's a lot of internalized weight bias that comes with that. Or individuals in larger bodies and even all of our bodies being constantly told everywhere that health equals thin, right? So individuals who don't know that that's not actually necessarily the truth walk around feeling that there's something maybe wrong with them, that they're just not trying hard enough. They're letting, people down, or they're giving up on their health if they're not dieting.
I feel like what you're explaining right now is truly my life, and like the whole yo-yo dieting from figure competition dieting to trying to lose weight postpartum, and then like this cycle of, it's so important to not go on that cycle.
And it's so hard. I mean, postpartum especially, there's such pressure on women to get their pre-baby body back.
Yeah.
And even around wedding, I work with a lot of clients postpartum. I work with a lot of clients post-wedding. Just so much cultural pressure. There's the dad bod, but like on the women's side, you're expected to have that six-pack and no cellulite, no stretch marks, within 4 months of giving birth.
Right.
And it's just not helpful or supportive of actually taking care of your body and what
completely.
You need. Yeah.
And I mean, that in and of itself leads to such negative behavior in exercise and women going to the gym when really their bodies aren't even ready to go back to the gym or fitness classes. It's sad. And that's how people are injuring themselves. And
right. And movement has become, in terms of like that idea of the diet mindset, movement in the diet mindset that is often very compensatory of like, got to earn your cheat meal, or, like you ate this thing for lunch, you better work it off. And I think postpartum especially, but then in general, like if we actually thought about like what movement makes me happy, what do I find joy in this? Do I even like this? And we really tuned in, we would crave and want to start slower, build that foundation. Like if we're actually tuning in, jumping from giving birth to a boot camp class probably isn't going to feel that great. But when we're just focusing on the aesthetic or calories burned, we'll overlook those things in pursuit of this external result.
Yeah.
We wanted to take a moment to say thank you for tuning in to the Edmonds Mom Room podcast. To keep up with our events, upcoming shows, and wellness newsletter, follow us at Body Motion PT on Instagram and Facebook, or head over to bodymotionpt.com.
Yeah.
Are there guidelines for intuitive eating?
There's principles of intuitive eating. So like I said, intuitive eating is not the hunger fullness diet. It's not a diet. It's a way of relearning a relationship with food that's positive, sustainable, and responsive to your body cues. So some of the, guidelines include things like letting go of the diet mentality, recognizing your food rules that you have. Things like, don't eat after 8 o'clock. You have to eat X amount of protein after a workout. Carbs are bad, this or that. And then learning to honor your hunger. So right, with dieting, hunger is something to be managed, or hunger is good, it means you're losing weight. So instead with intuitive eating, am I hungry? How do I respond to that? Honoring fullness on the other end, coping with emotions without using food. So often, food is a source of comfort or something we're using for reward, which is part of normal eating, but being able to have multiple tools in your toolbox for that. Things like discovering satisfaction. So, in our culture, food is fuel. It's protein, carbohydrates, and fat. And we totally, leave out pleasure and the importance of pleasure in food. And then things like movement, finding a positive and joyful relationship with movement, and also respecting your body and genetics and the whole body image piece that goes along with the work. So those are some of the guidelines, and it's a process. It's an exploration of your body story. How did you get to where you are with your relationship with food? What are your food rules? Where do they come from? And then really what I like to call experiments and data collection, or at least approaching it that way. Like go out and, try something. What do you notice? What happens? Starting to slowly learn and let your body guide you. And at first, because trust has been broken a long time ago, it's hard to trust your body to tell you what to do. There's, kind of training wheels as you're getting going. And then as that trust builds, it becomes a lot easier. Kind of like driving. It's scary at first. You're really focused. And then before you know it, over time, it's second nature and you don't think about it at all.
Mm-hmm. What's a food example of going out and trusting yourself, experimenting?
Something that comes to mind maybe for like breakfast. So if someone's like, well, how much do I eat for breakfast? Or, well, what should I have for breakfast? It could be something like, okay, well, why don't you experiment? What would it be like, the difference if you had eggs with toast or cereal or yogurt and granola? Have it. How long does it keep you full for? Which did you find most satisfying? What do you notice if you had 2 eggs versus 3 versus 4? Or what if you only had a piece of fruit for breakfast versus something that had more substance to it? So collecting that lived personal experience. So for example, eating before bed is a big one that I get asked. For some people, if they eat before they go to bed, they get heartburn, or some people have weird dreams. For other people, if they don't eat something before they go to bed, they wake up in the middle of the night hungry, or they have a hard time sleeping. So it's really about try it out. What do you notice comes up for you?
Yeah.
And starting to collect information about your unique body, because what works for me isn't necessarily going to work for you, right?
Okay. So revolutionary, but yet just simply evolution, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like this is how we evolved and developed, but then we put restrictions on everything and created body image and health image and
kids, grow up, and then at some point, it's often, as parents, like transferring our own food anxieties onto kids. Like, I don't trust that they're going to self-regulate. Like, Halloween candy came, they ate all of it. Like, they clearly don't know. And then we start putting kind of rules, or, you can't leave the table until you clean your plate, teaching them to override fullness, or, well, don't have too much of that, or... And it's hard. It's a delicate balance at the parents of being able to provide structure, like this, depending on the age. Ellen Satter is great in terms of her education and guidelines around raising competent eaters, but we just absorb all these rules from such a young age, and trust often gets broken like very early on.
We just heard about Ellen Satter the other week.
Oh, you
so
did?
funny you bring her up. But
Yeah.
yeah. The one of the things that from her stuff was like, it's okay to have dessert first, or just like have dessert as part of the meal.
Yeah.
And you don't have to regulate that as good or bad or should come after the meal. So that was mind-blowing for me.
Yeah. And I think that actually what you said brings up a good point. Intuitive eating, like I said, is an evidence-based health intervention. So it is grounded in the principles of nutrition. You know, we need protein, we need carbohydrates, we need fats. And principle number 10 of intuitive eating is honor your health. We're not saying that ice cream and apples are nutritionally equivalent. We're saying they're morally equivalent. So it's not good or bad. Maybe something's more nutritionally dense, but when we are labeling something as bad and putting morality into it, then one, we rebel against perceived restrictions and want it more, but it gives that food power that it doesn't need to have. And it makes it difficult to really tune in and know if we actually want that thing or if we're wanting it from a place of scarcity.
Yeah, fascinating. Oh, that's so good. So diving into that morality, bringing it more mainstream, what's happening right now, the sugar's so bad. I'm sugar addicted. How do I get off the sugar? Can you tell us a little bit about that? And is that a healthy balance to have? From what I'm gaining, it's not.
Yeah. You know, so you hear a lot about like food addiction, Overeaters Anonymous, sugar addiction. And currently, you know, meta-analysis of like the data that we have, the results are inconclusive. What we do know, though, is that restriction and dieting is a major predictor of overeating. So again, it's this scarcity thing. So it's that self-fulfilling prophecy. People are like, I can't have sugar, I shouldn't have sugar, I'm not going to have any of X, Y, and Z. And they're able to sustain that for a period of time, but then they get, you know, someone brings that hot plate of, you know, warm cookies around or candies in the office or whatever it is, and it's this all or nothing. You know, you have one, and then it's like, oh, well, screw it, might as well have them all. And then again, self-fulfilling prophecy. See, I can't control myself, so I pull myself back to that space of restriction. Whether it's literal, like I don't have any of the thing in the house, or whether it's just perceived. So you can walk into a grocery store full of, you know, all the fun foods, but if your mind is like, these are off limits, these are bad, they start building and having a lot of this power. So, you know, highly palatable foods and certain food combinations are going to be very exciting to the palate or to the brain. However, it's most often what's on top of that is the morality that we're placing in food, the scarcity that we're feeling around these foods, the dieting behaviors that are driving the pull. Cravings, oftentimes people with sugar are doing low carbs. So you're carb depleted, you're going to really feel a pull towards sugar. Or you're not getting a lot of variety in your meals and you're having the same, like, you know, chicken, broccoli, quinoa for lunch every day. And so, of course, like anything, you know, more fun than that we're going to feel a really strong pull towards it. There's multiple reasons for that. So I think the sugar addiction and food addiction model needs to be looked at critically, and it's much more complex.
It's self-sustaining.
Yeah, that's
is what you're... Yeah, self-fulfilling, I suppose. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
That's helpful. So I get a lot of people in my practice that want transformation. They want their mommy tummy gone, and they think that part of that health journey is losing weight. Can you tell me how you approach that?
Yeah, so I often have clients come to me and say, you know, Natalie, well, it's for my health. Like, I want to lose weight for my health. And sometimes I'll ask, you know, if I could wave a magic wand and know 100% for sure that you were perfectly healthy, would you still want to lose weight? And most of them will say yes. So I think there's that separating of, is it really about health or is it about body image? The health side of things, again, a lot of it, like our medical industry, especially with the BMI, and our fitness industry, I think, really sets us up for this vision where, you know, everywhere we look is like health is equal to a smaller body, or often health conditions or health situations are blamed on somebody's weight. And what we know from the research, again, like I said, trying to lose weight through restrictive dieting or dieting is the greatest predictor of weight gain. You know, 95% of people regain the weight, 75% gain back even more. We don't hear this because often, you know, those before before and after pictures are captured 30 days at, if you finish the challenge, let me get that picture. 1 to 5 years out is when people have regained that weight. So health in terms of metabolic health is more about our health behaviors than it is about our body size. So for example, with movement, an individual who's maybe lives in a larger body but's metabolically fit, who exercises, is going to have a reduced risk of disease or greater longevity than somebody in a smaller body who isn't metabolically fit or who doesn't move and work out. Or social connection, especially men later in life, social connection, a social network is shown to be protective against heart disease. So if we're only looking at weight, we're missing a lot of the picture. And we know in terms of weight that weight loss and weight gain, weight fluctuations are actually more harmful on the body than a stable weight at, a higher weight. BMI is something that, clients will often come to me and like, well, my BMI is in the overweight or unhealthy range or obese. And even that, a lot of people don't know that the BMI is a statistical measurement created in the early 19th century by a mathematician, not a physician. It was never intended to be a health indicator. It's useful for insurance companies and billing, but that's about it. And so with this whole, health at every size approach, it's about honoring the fact that body diversity is a thing. Restrictive dieting doesn't work. But if we're focusing on actual health, then focusing on health behaviors is how we can actually make a true impact. So having clients, helping them understand that, and then approaching body image as a separate thing of honoring the fact that living in a smaller body has a lot of benefits culturally, but then how do we support positive body image regardless of the size that we're at? So not about saying you have to love your body, but can you respect it? Like loving a partner or a child. There's some days where you're like, you're the best thing ever, and other days where you're really annoyed and you just like want them to go away. But love is like, how do you respect the person or yourself regardless how you feel on a given day? Definitely complex, for sure.
So Natalie, this has been so informative. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this, and I absolutely got my own little reset here. So if someone was interested in everything you're saying, how do they know, A, that they're an ideal client to work with you, and how do they go about finding you?
So typically clients who reach out to me, often what I hear are things like, Natalie, I know what to eat, I just don't know how. I feel like I'm good all week, but then fall off the wagon on the weekend. I am tired of dieting. I've hit diet rock bottom. Thinking about food as either good or bad. Tired of feeling preoccupied with food, or tired of struggling with body image. So these are all sorts of concerns or language that I hear when people seek me out. I think it's helpful to also note that many people reach out to me or start looking for a provider because weight is a frustration, or that body image piece. So it's okay if you want to be in a smaller body, or if like weight loss is what prompted you to reach out. It's something that I hold space for within the body image component. Like I said, I don't prescribe weight loss, but it doesn't mean that you have to have totally let that go in order to approach intuitive eating. Yeah, and if you're not sure, like I offer free consultations. So I always encourage people just to sign up. We can have a conversation, see if it feels like a good fit. People can find out more about me on my website. nataliejaffe.com is a good place to go. Email, call, and go from there. Yeah, and then hopefully you get to the website, you have a link, and people can reach out through that.
Yeah. We'll put your website in the show notes. So that'll be there, your contact information.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much. And I think that you've provided a lot of people with clarity today on how to stop dieting and get health for life.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. And I'm excited to be able to share about this because I think that it's not something that people know is an option out there. And if I can help even one more person stop feeling crazy around food and actually feel more grounded in their bodies, then that would be amazing.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah,
thank you, Natalie.
The Edmonds Mom's Room podcast is brought to you by Body Motion Physical Therapy. We help women through pregnancy and beyond so they can live active, confident, and healthy lives.